Hey YouTubers, Becky here, rolling with the Davises. Come along with us as we continue our Alaska adventures. In this portion of the video, we left Skagway, Garden City RV Park, headed to Chitina. This is our first day driving between Skagway and Haines Junction, where we spent the night. Just a few words about the RV park. It is pretty much within walking distance of everything in Skagway. We were able to get our laundry done and we had electric hookup. We were able to use the dump station and get water filled before we left. So after our fantastic adventures in Skagway, I'll link that video below, we headed back north toward the other part of Alaska. We did not load the Jeep into the trailer to get out of Skagway because of that grade. I actually drove the Jeep behind the rig till we got to almost to the border with Canada, and we loaded it back up there. And then we headed into Whitehorse. We needed some parts at the Napa, but we also fueled up at the Petro-Canada in Whitehorse. Not near as bad at this fill up as it was at the previous one, $4.70 a gallon. We used 120 liters, which is 30 gallon. So 141 American dollars, 195 Canadian. Like I say, much better than the almost $8 that we paid over before we got to Skagway because we were out in the boonies. Then we headed on over to the rest area at Haines Junction for the night, on our way to Chitina. The only wildlife we saw that day was this bison, but that's okay, because look at this view! Speaking of view, this was our view at the Haines Junction rest area. So to get back into Alaska and down to Chitina from Skagway, you basically have to come back out and drive way north to drop back down south. Here's Chitina and here's McCarthy. So this day we started at Haines Junction here at that beautiful rest area. We drove up to Tok, and that's where we got fuel for the day. We ended up getting 45.5 gallon. It was $3.73 a gallon, so not bad. Can't complain about that after what we paid for the other stuff. So $170. We ended up driving a total of 318 miles, 548 kilometers down to this rest area at Mataska Lake. We saw our first snowshoe hares today, and then we saw a grizzly bear. Look at that guy. We saw swans on the lake. Apparently these birds are migrating north into northern Alaska, possibly as far as Siberia in Russia. Now let's talk about the Alaska Highway itself. Up until this point, toward the end of Canada, it had been a fairly decent road. When we hit this part, there were a lot of frost heaves, a lot of potholes. It was just a really rough section of road. And I understand that's just the way the terrain is with the permafrost under the ground. Things heave. I will give them credit. They seem to be constantly working on it, at least this time of year. They're out there doing construction. Sometimes it's just a lone truck working by himself. They're trying to get it patched, and we saw sections where they were trying to replace the whole road. Just be very mindful of this. Watch your speed. Be willing to slow down. And then we were back in Alaska again. There is a nice big pull-off here. Good place to stop and get some pictures or video.
I'm staying in the United States and Canada at the same time. I'm in two different countries.
For your citizenship.
United States, Canada.
Over here. Now we're country apart. There we go, dead center.
Looks like we should see a moose.
Yeah, because that is the cut. It's the border cut.
Yeah, that's the border cut. Yep.
Looking down through it, goes right over the hill.
They keep it mowed. USA border. US and Canada border. They keep it mowed right down through that cut.
So our border crossing was very simple. They did pull us over. They had fish and game there, and they inspected our kayaks in the trailer to make sure we didn't have any invasive species on those. They were clean and dry, so no problems there. Dave did make a comment to one of them about he hoped that the roads in Alaska were better than the last few miles in Canada, and they kind of laughed and said, and I think it was about 30 miles ahead, they said, you're going to have 16 miles of construction. Well, this is the 16 miles of construction. End of May 2025, they had completely stripped all the pavement off of this and were rebuilding all of the underneath the base layers, all that kind of stuff was being redone. They were doing new culverts, all that good stuff. We actually had a couple places where they had put down new base, and we drove off the actual road around excavators that were working on some of the culverts. They do run pilot cars, and you will have to stage and wait till the oncoming traffic gets through if that's the way you happen to get there. It usually doesn't take a long time, but that's the way they do it up here. They run one-way traffic behind a pilot car. And we made it to Metasta Lake, our boondocking spot for the night. This is the kind of boondocking that we had hoped to find on our trip up here. But when you're 64 feet long, a little over 64 feet long, and you're a big square box about 12 and a half feet tall, you got to watch out for these narrow gravel roads, too many tree limbs, all that kind of stuff. And it just didn't work out like we'd hoped. We ended up doing a lot more rest area and parking close to the road, which the traffic at night is not bad. So it's not really a problem. But this was a nice little drive back into this lake. It is a public recreation area, so I guess it's a little bit better maintained than some of the other ones. Wait till you see the end. Look at this view and this nice, level, flat parking area. No trees in the way, so we got some solar in for the night. It was fantastic. And yes, there actually is a little lake there. Let me show you some pictures. We thought we might see a moose, but no luck. We saw moose tracks and moose scat, but no moose. So day 3 of our drive to Chitina from Skagway. We started our morning in Metasta Lake. I don't think that ends there. I think it's actually Metasta Lake. I'll have to look that up. And drove south to Chitina. Very easy drive, 181 miles. And just wait till you see what we drove through to get to our campground. I will tell you, we hit another huge bump just before we got to Chitina. In the shadows, let me show you the video. That was being filmed with a GoPro, and of course that stabilized it and didn't show how much it actually shook the coach. The noise you heard was a cabinet door coming open, threw out coffee cans, and broke a coffee mug. I'm just glad the coffee didn't come open and make a real mess. I will tell you, the drive into Chitina from Metasta Lake is absolutely gorgeous. We are looking at Wrangell-St. Elias. And here we enter Chitina, Alaska itself. There is a little bit back up the road there. There's a health center, some government buildings, I think, in the airport. But this is the old town of Chitina. We are driving toward our campground. We're going to kind of turn to the left down here. And once we make that left, we are going to be driving on the old roadbed of the railroad that went to the Kennecott mine. Around to the left. We've got a wayside here that's run by the town of Chitina. Some things online say that there's water there for campers. There's not. We did not find potable water there. Then where this vehicle is turning, that's the road back to the National Park Visitor Center. There's the entrance to a small country store here on the right. They've got your basic staples, your basic, what you would need for camping or a quick meal. Not a Walmart, anything like that, not supersized. And then coming up, this is the road to McCarthy. And guess what we're driving through here? We took our RV through the old railroad cut. Just amazing, just amazing. They pulled up the railroad and turned it into just a regular road. And this is the road that you take to get to McCarthy at Wrangell-St. Elias National Park. When it was a railroad, it was a tunnel. They blasted that out and just made it a cut for vehicle traffic. After the cut, continue down the road a little bit, and you will drive across the Copper River. And at one time, yes, there was a railroad bridge here across the river. On the far side of this bridge, there is an arrow pointing to the Copper River rest area. There is free camping in there. There are no hookups, but it is a great place to camp, to explore the area, and to get yourself to McCarthy. We tend to take the first spot that we see that we'll fit into because we are 64 feet long and we just don't want to have to go down there and turn around somewhere. So we pulled off to the left here, perfect spot. We've got solar, no trees in the way, nice and level. This campground was really empty when we pulled in middle of the week, last week of May. It was just before salmon season, fish wheel and fishing. I understand that it gets very packed. Even the overflow parking up there by the restrooms will be packed during fishing season. Why come to Chitina, Alaska, you might ask? Chitina, Alaska is the gateway to Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, the largest park in the system. And that also includes the town of McCarthy and the Kennecott Copper Mill. Kennecott Copper Mill was my main reason for wanting to come to Chitina. I don't watch television, so I knew absolutely nothing about the TV show Edge of Alaska. Dave was the one that said, "Oh, that's where the TV show was filmed," when I talked about going to McCarthy. My only reason to go to McCarthy is because that's where you catch the shuttle bus to go to the Kennecott Mill. So what happens is that this 60-mile gravel road starts in Chitina, Alaska, headed to McCarthy. It is the old railroad bed for the Copper River and Northwest Railroad. There is a little bit of evidence once in a while of some wood pilings all along the road that was part of the railroad. And then there's also a bridge that was a railroad bridge that has been converted to vehicle traffic. There are a lot of people who are afraid to drive this road because there have been horror stories of tires and vehicles being damaged by railroad spikes and railroad ties. But as you can see, when we were there, the surface was very good, very little washboarding. Probably didn't have to leave as early as we did because the road was in such good condition. People do take RVs on this road. We didn't want to take our rig down through here because, as you can see, it's very narrow. If you meet somebody, there's not always somewhere to pull over. Get out of the way. There are shuttle buses out of Anchorage and I believe Glen Allen, maybe a few other places that will take you to McCarthy. You don't have to drive this road. Once you get to McCarthy, you have to park outside of town, and there are a couple footbridges that you follow the path to get into the town itself. You want to head to the general store to get your tickets for the shuttle bus up to the national park. The general store is also where you actually catch the bus to the national park. You can walk it, but I think it's a 4-mile trip if you want to hike up to the national park and not pay for the shuttle bus. The shuttle buses are privately run and not part of the national park system. Two of the main attractions on this road are the Tuscaloosa Bridge and the gilahinatrestle. We did not stop and see those on the way in the morning. We stopped in the afternoon because we had a 9:30 tickets for the Kennecott Mill. We actually left our campsite before 6 o'clock. By the time you drive to McCarthy, go across the footbridge, get to the general store, get your shuttle passes, get on the shuttle, get to the mill. We didn't want to take a chance on missing our 9:30 tour. So we booked it to McCarthy and we stopped on the way out to see the things we wanted to see.
We are walking into McCarthy. We got parked, paid our $12 daily fee. We are walking across the river. Yeah, there is another bridge into McCarthy, it looks like. Oh yeah, there's some old rail over there.
There's a bridge over there.
I think you can drive into McCarthy. Just as tourists, you can't drive into McCarthy. All right, we made it across the footbridge, and this is the view going into McCarthy. Look at that mountain. Wrangell-St. Elias Park and Preserve. Little rail over here running along with us. We just pulled it off and shoved it to the side where they built the road, it looks like. We are now walking across a second footbridge into town. We've got some old rail pylons here. Looks like we got part of an old trestle here. Looks like a good place to see a moose, but I don't see any. Water's beautiful clear. This is a shortcut to town.
This is how McCarthy gets its power. It makes it.
Huh. Whew, nice warm air coming out of there.
We made it to the Kennecott Mill, Wrangell-St. Elias National Park tour. Starts out talking about some of the buildings at the park itself here that were used by the mining company and the employees back when the mine was active. We did a self-guided tour of these buildings after we toured the mill. Many people come to Kennecott just to hike to Root Glacier. Some come, go to Root Glacier, and just do the self-guided tour. Some just do the self-guided tour. Buildings that are open and accessible are owned by the National Park Service, so they're well signed with a lot of good information. If you opt to do the tour, you'll see the winches and cables that carried the buckets back and forth from the mine that brought the copper ore down. You'll learn about the discovery of the copper and, of course, the legal battles that ensued. You'll learn about the famous investors who ended up with the rights to the mine. You'll also learn about the fact that when they were done with it, when the price of copper dropped and they closed the mine and the mill, they actually paid somebody to demolish it. He got started and then changed his mind and took the money and ran.
All right, so on this floor we have our first vibrating screens. There's one below us on the next floor that is not as destroyed as these, and you can see a better version of it. But essentially the ore is coming down through here. There would have been a screen running across here that's vibrating back and forth as the ore is sliding across it. If it is the correct size, it's going to drop down into the back bin. If it is still too big, it is going to go into this other chute to then be processed for more crushing. Pretty cool stuff. Now, this building was ever growing and ever changing. It's like a living thing. We'll see a lot of evidence of that. They wanted to keep their operation going, but they also wanted to expand it, improve their equipment, and things like that.
Don't forget, this is a very old building. Safety was not always their first priority.
These would have been going at 120 RPMs. That's crazy fast. It's a huge piece of machine. Yeah, I can't push it as fast as it would have been going. It would have been moving like this, and your ore would have been coming down through here, and those holes are plugged up right now, but helps sorting. Not very much. Nope. I like to say that hearing protection was unheard of at the time.
I'm a product of that environment.
So start to imagine like all of these machines with like thousands of pounds of ore running through the building 24/7. I've heard it said that you could hear this building from McCarthy.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty wild stuff. So there would have been water running through this machine. This whole building would have had water running through it all the time, thousands of gallons. Does anybody know why?
Dust.
Dust. What about dust?
It's
Well, get the ore separated out like gold.
That's a good guess. So we're on our money train. Even the dust
had copper.
has little bits of copper and money. So we want to retain everything that we can.
not to protect the workers.
Not to protect the workers. No. And that'll lead us to our next thing. This building was heated in the winter time. What do you think it was heated to?
Steam.
Yes, we were using steam. But what do you think? What temperature do you think it was heated to in the winter time? Yep, 33 to 35. They didn't care about the comfortability, they just wanted to keep that water from freezing. Stephen Birch is quoted as saying that he likes it when it's cold because the men work harder.
Heat in here.
Oh, look at that. There's some of the steam radiator.
Now on this floor we have some more crushing machines. Over here we've got the trailer roller mill. This one there's a singular disc in there like this, and there's another one that is oscillating around it to crush the ore as it goes through. And this one over here is the Simmons disc crusher. Again, 2 discs, but this time they're rotating in opposite directions like this. So we are now starting our sorting of our ore. It's going to come down this chute over here and drop down into this machine. You can see there is an inner frame and an outer frame. And what would have been happening here is this inner frame connected to these bars going across is going to be rotating in what they call a circular square pattern, and it's going like this. This machine is called the Hancock jig, and the ore is sorting itself based on weight and density. We're using gravity. There's water flowing through here, and as this machine is doing that rotation, your higher density ore is staying over on this side where your lower density will work its way down to the other end. These are shaker tables. These are shaking back and forth. You've got your ore dropping down, your water running across the table. And again, we're using that density of the ore. We're using the gravity to sort it. This is where they developed the ammonia leaching process. And this process was actually developed on site. This was new technology for the mining world. So what they discovered is that you could dissolve the ore in those little tidbits of those small pieces in ammonia, and it would eat up the ore and leave the copper. It would dissolve just the ore. And then you would have the ammonia with copper floating around in it, and you could boil out the ammonia and be left with just the copper.
Here's where the underground tunnels were.
That's where they were actually mining the ore.
Yeah. All right, and here's the aerial trams, which move the ore down. And then Bonanza Mine Trail. That's how they got up there.
That's where the Bonanza mine was in relation to everything else.
Jumbo Mine Trail. Erie Root Glacier Trail.
That's just a hiking trail to the Root Glacier. They may have used it back in the day to get to the Erie mine.
There's the wagon road. And then the road, which was the former railroad to McCarthy.
So in this building behind the mine is where we're standing right now. It's where this relief map is and these different things. This is a good place to come if you're not doing the mine tour itself, because we did pay for the mine tour, but this has some information here that helps you understand what happened here if you're not actually going to do the mine tour.
There's actually four
Yep.
units,
4 of
4
them.
power units.
So they heated the mill with steam and they powered the mill with steam. Alice Chalmers. There's your
Yeah.
electric generator.
Yeah. So that was a steam turbine.
Big Mike Haney claimed the right of way. And then sold the rights, and they ended up hiring him back to build the railroad as a contractor, 196 miles from Cordova to Kennecott, through forest and avalanche zones, 129 bridges, canyons and rivers, and even the Allen Glacier. For 3 years, they worked in the dark and bitter cold and in the heat and bugs. The completed cost was $23 million, equivalent to $6 billion in 2016. This is the train depot. We are in the general store at Kennecott, built in 1917, restored in 2006. Dave was just going through the price list here in the book. Pretty interesting, some of the canned stuff. Canned celery, mock turtle soup, Here's your cornflakes, shredded wheat, Tiger toilet tissue.
That went across the pedestrian bridge in the late 70s to 96, on the way across the Kennecott McCarthy. Was over that via trams over the separate channels.
Wow.
The cable and the block is still there. We're parked on this side right over here.
Oh, we'll have to look for it on the way back.
Okay, makes sense now.
We were in a hurry to get in here this morning, and we didn't want to miss our tour. It's some steps and stages to get up here. Looks like this was the warehouse for the, it says for the store and the mill, but this, a lot of plumbing fittings listed here, so probably for the steam operation that heated the mill.
There are a couple films you can watch on the history of the area, and of course the history of the mine and the mill operation. When you get to McCarthy, be sure to tour the McCarthy-Kennecott Historical Museum. They do work on donations. My favorite part of the museum was this historical photographic timeline of the building of the railroad and the building of the mill and everything that went on around it.
Thank you.
Would you sign our book and let us know
Sure.
who you are and where you're from?
Sure.
You folks just finished the mill tour?
No, we just had some lunch. We just got into town.
Oh, good. Ate over at the potato, did
Oh, yeah.
This is in the train car here at the museum. They've got some mining equipment. Here's a diorama of the Bonanza mine. Which unfortunately you can hike up there, but and they say there's a little bit left, but not much. And no access to any of the mines.
We had lunch at the Potato in town before we left. Good food and fairly reasonable prices for where they are. People in McCarthy were very welcoming. We had a very good time and really enjoyed our time at the mill. Of course, we love our history, so it was right up our alley.
I forget what year it was, but we saw in the museum that sometimes, I think it was in the 70s, I'll check it and fix it here. The bridge washed out and everybody got into town over a tram line, right? You can see it here.
1970 to 96, I think it said.
And here's one of the mechanisms for one of the tram lines over the river.
We are at the gilahinatrestle from the old Copper River and Northwest Railway on McCarthy Road in Alaska. The wooden wonder, this panel tells the story of an amazing and perilous construction of the 90-foot tall, 880-foot long wooden railroad trestle across Gilahina River. It was constructed in the dead of winter in 1911 in temperatures as low as minus 67 degrees. In spite of the terrible conditions, the trestle was completed in just 8 days.
Can't imagine. 60 below zero and did this in 8
8
days.
days.
Did you say it's what, 90 feet?
That's what it says, yeah.
90 feet out the river.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this fill that we're standing on, or this is the road into the trestle from McCarthy Road. So this is the old train path.
Yeah, you can see the original cut when you get back in here, where they actually cut the hill out some, so
Okay.
they brought that forward.
Right, right, cut and fill.
Didn't they say they tried from the far side?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's where the monkey would get up there. There's still a good bit of wood. I'm very surprised at that.
This is the bridge that Dave just drove across. We were told you could access this catwalk from down here, but we see the catwalk, but we don't see a good way to get there. We saw a picture in the museum today of 2 cranes working on this bridge. One had come in from each end, building that structure. Pretty impressive for back in 1911.
Here's a couple snapshots I took as we crossed the bridge. Not the best pictures, but it does show you kind of what the canyon's like. Very beautiful. As we make our way back into Chitina from McCarthy, I just want to say a little bit about the town of Chitina. We felt very welcomed. We spent a little bit of time at Uncle Tom's Tavern, just talking to the locals and the tourists and the people coming in to do the fishing when the salmon start to run, and we just had a great time. We actually had a hard time leaving Chitina. And as always, let's keep rolling.